Recording in progress.
Okay, so today we are going to look at part 2 of middle school, high school scheduling, which includes running the batch scheduler. But before getting into batch scheduling, we're going to review a few things that were covered during part 1. The good thing about rescheduling this multiple times is most of you are probably not at the point where you want to run your batch scheduler yet. Some of you might still be getting your requests from your students if they had hard copies. Some of you, might still be in the scheduling process with your students, or you might still be getting those requests put into the system. So you really can't do the whole batch scheduler process until you have all of those requests in. So today we are looking at the batch scheduler procedural checklist. Surprise, surprise, it's a checklist. So this is going to go through all of the things. I'm kind of going to go out of the order that the tasks are in, but I will tell you when I'm skipping and going back. The other thing that is in here, including people that are listening to the recording, is the scheduling guide overview. I don't have you guys print this one off because it is 200 and some pages. So this is the full PDF version of it, but all of this is broken down into different areas. So if there's anything that you wanted to look at individually, everything is broken down here. So for example, we will look at I missed it somewhere. It's in here. But we'll look at that and so forth. So again, this is just the full version of everything if you did want to refer to something. So I'm going to go back to our homepage. So a couple things before this can even be done with the BAT scheduler. One is school year initialization. All districts have completed their school year initialization by this point with the exclusion of our community schools. But you guys are done with that. So I know sometimes in the past this course was mid-February and sometimes your SYI had not been completed yet. So with this being later this time, everybody is complete with that. Other things that need to be completed is your student promotion and bulk enrollment. So we did that during the SYI process. If you are that person that completed the SYI, you probably promoted and then bulk enrolled. If you were one of the early SYI people, you might want to go through that process again. So what this does is promote the students from the 24-25 school year to and enroll them into the 25-26 school year. So any student that has enrolled since we've completed SYI does not automatically flow into the new school year or the future school year. So that student promotion and bulk enrollment needs to be done often as you know that students are registering into your building. And then, of course, your requests need to be in and completed before running the batch scheduler. So like I said, a lot of you probably are not at the point where you're ready to run your batch scheduler, but we will have it. We will have it set up so that it is ready to run for you. Thank you, Rebecca. She forgot to tell me that I was still muted. Sorry, I muted to cough and forgot to unmute. So a couple things that need to happen before running the batch scheduler. One, every student needs to have at least one approved request. So not an assignment, but a request. So with that being said, if you look here with this student that I have in context, their status for their request have been approved. If you are using the public module, if it says pending, that means the student hasn't finalized yet. So just be aware of that. They need to go back in and get that finalized on the public module side. You can actually do it yourself by going into the request by clicking on the edit pencil and then changing it to approved. But if there's a lot of students that have pendings, please put in a ticket and we can have Frontline run a script and it'll switch those all over. So, but again, that is if you are using the public module, the student has to hit submit in order for it to change from pending. So that is one. The student must have at least one request. So if you are bulk, or if you are bulk putting in requests such as lunch, if the student has lunch but no other request, it is still going to run the batch scheduler for that student. So just be aware of that. Okay. It has to be approved. So it has to be in the approved status. It will not run for pending. And then the student status must be active. So, and I'm not just saying, oh, well, it only runs for active students, but I want it to run for my non-residents as well. No, it's the active status in your student status screen. So if I look at my student statuses, so it's any, I didn't want that one, I want this one. It's any that have the active status. So in this case, it's my active residents, my early graduates, my non-residents, and my JVS part-time students. So because their status is set to active, the batch scheduler will run. If any student is set to inactive, it does not run for those students. So just be aware of that. Okay. Then also, excuse me, on page 3, the note there, I do want to make sure that you guys are aware of this. So one, the FYI, when the batch scheduler is running, it does not look at the gender directives. So if you have phys ed classes that are male and female classes only, the batch scheduler does not look at that. Also note next to that, this is not in there, but the batch scheduler also does not look at prerequisites or or co-requisites. So it's assuming that the approved request means that you've looked and they have met the pre or co-requisite. So the batch scheduler does not look at the gender directives or the pre and co-requisites. So be aware of that. Also note that if you assign a course section to a teacher, but you decide not to use that, course section, it will still flow over into the teacher's gradebook. So meaning that it's going to come over, but it's not going to have a student roster. So for example, I have 5 sections of Algebra 1, and maybe we have lower enrollment this year, so we only need 4 sections of it, but I already assigned section 5 to Mrs. Smith. Well, this section 5 is going to roll over or integrate into gradebook if it is an active section, even if there's not students assigned into it. So just be aware of that. However, if you do make that section inactive, then it does not roll over during SYI. So those are just a few tips and stuff before getting started with the batch scheduler. So starting on page 4, task 1. Looking at some reports and things before you start actually completing or running the batch scheduler. So some of these we talked about during part one. We're going to look at some of these a little differently and some of them a little bit more in depth. For example, the CRSE report. I think every training we do, we talk about the CRSE report because it shows all the courses and it does allow you to pick those field criteria that you want to display. So if we look down here, the field to display, and I just typed in CRSE in the go-to box. If you're using the breadcrumb trail, all of the ones that we are going to talk about are under the scheduling reports. So the CRSE is in here. Also, we are working in the 25-26 school year, so make sure your screen is saying that you are working in the future school year, not the current. We don't, the batch scheduler won't run once schedules are finalized, but you don't want to be adjusting student schedules in the current school year. We want to make sure we're doing those adjustments in the future. So typically when we are running the CRSE, we are looking at maybe we are looking at like course names. Is it active class? Is it included in GPA? Things like that. But in this case, when we're getting ready to actually batch schedule, there's certain things that we want to look at to make sure our courses are set up correctly. So one thing is the course type. We want to make sure our course types are set correctly. Of course, our classes are going to be classes. We want to make sure that all of our study halls are scheduled as study halls and not classes. So we can use the study hall wizard in order to schedule those to the students after we're done with our batch scheduling and so forth. So I'm going to look at my course type. The demand count is how many people have requested this course, and then the scheduling priority. So the higher number the number is, a 9 is going to be a higher priority than a 2. So for example, our core classes, like a senior, we need them to take an English 12 class. That's going to have a scheduling priority of 9, whereas a keyboarding class or a computer class might have a scheduling priority of 3. Okay. So when I run this report, should I have it? So when I run this report, it will populate and it's going to show me those columns. Okay, so it's going to show me what the course code is, the course name, what grade levels it applies to, and then the course type. We want to make sure all of our classes are classes. And then all of our study halls are Z's for study hall. The demand is going to be how many people have requested this, and then the scheduling priority that is also going to be listed here. So you can see my English classes are a higher priority than a math essentials class. Okay. So that is a nice way to use the CRSE report in a different way than we have looked at it in the past. Another report where you can't customize the fields like you can with the CRSE report, the Analytics Hub report that we always talk about, the course details, this is going to give you all of that information that you can export into Excel file, but it's going to contain, the scheduling priority, the course type, and so forth. So this one I'm going to run on the fly, so it does take a little bit to run it, but then you'll be able to see I want to run this the 25-26 school year for my high school. All of your courses that were active in 24-25 would carry up to 25-26 during SYI. So same like the CRSE, I have the course code, the course name. I have my scheduling priority listed here. And then you can see that it has all of those fields where I can only pick 10 of those when I'm running the CRSE. So if I scroll through here, I can go on and see, is it honor roll? Is it in GPA and so forth? And then here's my course type to make sure that my classes are set for classes and that my study halls are set for study halls. And again, you can export this to Excel if you wanted to manipulate it a little bit better. One thing that is not on either of these reports, and it really doesn't have to deal with scheduling per se, but a little bit it does, is the EMIS override. You might have English classes, but you did an EMIS override on one of them. So section 90 is your special ed English class. So you want to make sure that all of those SPED kids are scheduled into that section 90. It is not going to show on here if it is an EMIS override. It doesn't show on this one and or the CRSE report. So just be aware of that. There are a lot of reports. I ran a lot of these already. So I just kind of want to make you aware of them. So I think next year what I'm going to do is do a separate training on just the different reports that you can run when you are in scheduling, because there are so many of them and you can get into a lot of detail with some of these. So again, I'm just going to look at some of these, kind of give you some highlights of what they do. And I already ran some of them so you can see what they look like. So the first one is your no request. So this is if you're looking for students that do not have any requests. So if I click on this, I can look. So if you have not ran these reports before, it will require you to pick the schedule and the schedule results, which was set during SYI. So it should be the default schedule and the default results set. I am not going to go into having multiple schedules or multiple results sets. If somebody has a strange situation where maybe you might be dropping classes next year, a lot of times they base it on levy because maybe you won't offer as many electives. You please contact me through a support ticket, and we'll go through that, how you can create two different schedules. So if the levy passes, you have the default. If it doesn't pass, you go to your backup one. You can see here, run type with no requests. I'm going to leave all my grade levels to the side. So it pulls all of them for my active and non-residents. And then I'm going to have it sort by the student name. And like I said, I already ran this one. So you can see I have not done any requests for my seniors. So you can see in the list here, it's listing all of my seniors in this report. So another way that you can look at these. So if I come back here and I type in uncommitted. So this is it. This is typically used if you are using the public module, but it also works if you want to see students that have no requests. So again, if I want to do my active, I want to do my non-residents. And then if I look down at the bottom, okay, so it says show students without requests. Okay, so in this case, it's going to show me students on screen only. So it is showing on screen those students that don't have requests that I just saw on the no request report. The uncommitted student, and that's why this report is here, is for students that are still stuck in pending from the public module, but it does work for students with no requests. So if I click on search, Again, this is an on-screen look, but this is going to show all of the students that don't have requests, and I did not request my have any requests for my seniors yet. So they are all going to be listed here. But hopefully by this time, this list is starting to get smaller and smaller for you. And then you can click directly on a student and it's going to take you to their student request screen, or if you want to manually add them, you could manually add them from here. Okay, back looking at so we looked at students that don't have requests, but what about students that do have requests? So there is a report for that, of course, the student course requests. So this is going to show you students that with the requests. Oops, one. So if I pull that up, you can see I just pulled it for my 9th grade students. So my 9th grade students have these requests for these courses. So these were bulk assigned or bulk, they were set in bulk for 9th grade students. So you can see they all have the same thing. You can do this per grade level. You can do this for all grade levels at a time. So that is the student course request. And again, I just ran it for my 9th grade students. And yes, I only have 3 9th grade students, but it's a good example to show. Back to our reports, looking here is the R206. I'm not going to talk much about this or show this because you probably already ran this. We talked about it in part 1. This is where it will print labels for your students. So this is good if you are still handing out a paper form for the students to fill out with their requests, their electives, and so forth. You can print those stickers and stick it on to that paper so you can read the student's name versus some of the illegible writing that the students call their name. Next is our 401. So this is the student request verification. This is saying if they've met prerequisites or co-requisites for their request. They don't have any invalid requests. So it's going to show back to, I already ran this one. It will show the student and it will show their request, that what they've requested and what priority it is. So you can see here for my 9th graders, they started in alphabetical order with 9th grade. So what they've requested, the priority and so forth. So it is in 2 columns. Okay. And then this also does have errors. So if an error populates, so we're looking here at Chris Bacon. So he has a GRD error for biology 1 and 2. If you look at the top of page 6, this shows all of the errors that might populate. Now, this does not stop the batch scheduler from running, but it is a way so you can see, okay, well, if I look at Chris, he's got the GRD, which means that it is the grade restriction is not met. So why is he in that class? Why is he requesting it? So you might see this maybe on Algebra 1. So maybe you have that for maybe a 7th grader is taking it and you only populated it for 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. So then it's going to have the GRD to say that the grade restriction was not met. So other ones that you will see is a duplicate. So if there's duplicate requests, so maybe they requested Spanish 1 twice, they forgot they already requested it and there's 2 in there. So you might see that one as well, but they are all listed there for you to see. I don't have a lot of the errors just because my population is so small. I'm going to close some of these reports. Okay, the next one is our tally, which gives you a tally of the students requesting each course. So it is a nice way to see, especially with enrollment changing. Oh, did I not run this one? I did not run this one. With enrollment changing year by year, one year you might need 3 sections of something. The next year you might only need 2 sections of it. So this report shows you how many requests are for that. I'm going to run it for all of my grade levels. I'm going to hit submit. It's going to categorize it by the course code. Go into my management screen. And then again, you can just see what the course is, okay, how many males, how many females have requested it, and then in each of the grade levels. Notice on my report, there's no grade 12. That's because remember, I ran that report earlier and I don't have any 12th graders with requests. So they were all blank. So that is why it's not listed here. But then looking at the total, you can see, okay, Algebra 2, there's 30 requests for it, but that classroom only seats 25. So I might need to break that down into 2 smaller groups versus having 1 big group. So again, your numbers are going to be a lot different than mine, but this is a way that you can see if additional sections need to be added or additional sections need to be taken away. So the next one is our R403. This is the conflicts matrix. And if you notice, they're in alphabetical order. They're not in numerical order by the endings. But here is our potential conflicts matrix. So this is used typically if you have those singleton courses or those courses that need to be taken together and other courses might be in conflict with it. So I did this course right here, 206, which is my French class. So if that is run, okay, it's not going to show a whole lot because I'm only running it for this one student. If I do not put a class code in context or course code in context and I run it, it is going to run for every single course. So you can see, I mean, this is, there's 3 course requests here and so forth. So this is a lot more details, whereas if you run it for a specific course, one student has requested this course and it could be a conflict because it is only offered during that time. So with that being said, I don't know who requested this. So there's a way that you can check to see who has requests. So if I go into scheduling and I go into requests, I'm going to take my student out of context. So if I take my student out of context, you can see it is asking for a course number. So I'm looking, I don't know who registered for this French class, but I need to see who it was because I need to get them registered in something else. Maybe they need to take Spanish instead. So if I click on that and hit search, so it's looking at my default schedule and my default result set, it's going to populate the list of students that have requested that. So again, these are requests. So it's saying that that request was approved for souffle. Okay. So again, you cannot have a student in context. If you have a student in context, the screen is going to look a little bit different and show all of that student's course requests. But you need to know what student it is based on this. This does not tell you what students requested it. I just know one did. Okay. So our next one is our R404. Again, you can go to that course request screen and pull up a specific course if you want. Our R404 is also going to show us that. Students who request. So again, you can do it by a specific course if you want, or you can show it by all courses. So I want to see students who have requested the course group 510. And then I'm going to run that. So this is by a specific class. So it's showing that Chris Bacon and Clara Nett both requested this course. Again, it is the same as going to that on screen and looking at the course requests that way. If I do not put anything in context, if I don't put anything in context, I think I ran this one by grade level. Oh no, this one was my English 10. Sorry, I did have a course in context. So this one's my English 10 course 02. And it shows me what students registered for that one or requested that one. Okay. So there are other ones that are going to show, conflicts, things like that. So one of the major ones that shows conflicts is your R406. So you can use this one with a specific one if you know that this is being offered at a specific time, or you can also use the 813A. The R813A will also show. So Spanish 3 is only being offered at this one time, and there are conflicts with English 11, lunch, and so forth. So this is just showing potential conflicts because 25 students have requested this, and they also requested other courses that might conflict with that one course that's offered at that one time. So like I said, this is very similar to looking at the 813A. This is going to show the single classes. So it's going to show what period it is and then the course code. It does not show the course name. But if I look on here, that 206, that French class is only offered during 5th period. So that's why I needed to reschedule souffle, because it could be a potential conflict with something else. Okay, then one that you might want to use to send home to parents is the R416. So this one you can customize the text. So if you want to put a signature line for parents so they can sign. So this is going to show their course requests. Oops, I think I just clicked on the wrong one. So R416. So I can print this out for a specific grade level. I can print it out for all my grade levels. So, there's a few things that you want to look on here. So I could say select only students who have requests. Okay, so if I uncheck that, if they don't have requests, it's not going to show. Print the current courses. So this is nice, so they can compare what they are in now in 24-25, and it's going to show compared to what they requested. So for example, I have a student that's in Algebra 1, but they're getting a D-, and then they've requested to move on to trig. That might not be a good idea. It might not be a good transition. So it's going to show their current schedule with their current grades compared to what they've requested. I already ran this for my 10th graders. Oh, I think this is the wrong one. Hold on. Sorry, I didn't label them very good. So if I look at this, I thought it was this one. Maybe I did this one wrong. Oh, here. timber. So this is if I include the current year. So here is what they've requested for next school year. Here is what they are currently taking. So, and then it's also showing based on their GP1 grade, it is showing what their grade was. I don't have a ton of grades in for that student, but since this is third 9 weeks, and third 9 weeks grades have not been submitted, you could display grading period 2, which would have those marks, so they can compare grading period 2 to the courses that they are scheduled for next year. So again, it's a nice little display of what they want and what they are currently in. This is the custom text that you can add. So if I'm looking at this screen, so your current term would be grade 2. If you are a complete semester only school and you had final grades at semester time, you can choose the fin, and that would show their semester grade. I did both just because just how the training database is set up. And then if you look here, here is my common text. So you can put that for parents to sign on. And then that populated here at the bottom. Also make sure when you're doing this, if you are going to send these out for parents to sign, or you're sending them home with students, make sure you check print only one student per page. If not, it will squeeze in as many as possible on a page. So again, if you're sending home, make sure that is checked. Okay, the next few I'm just gonna talk about a little. We already talked about the 813, but the location schedule and the teacher schedule. This is just a report that is going to show any conflicts. If the room has been scheduled, the batch scheduler does not look at the rooms or the location, so it will still schedule even if 2 teachers are supposed to be in the same room at the same time. I know a lot of our smaller schools, that teacher stays in the same room all day long. But some of our bigger schools, you know, room 100 might have 3 different teachers throughout the day. So the location schedule might show the different times a day when there are classes in there. And then instead of the location, our 411 is the teacher. And the teacher might have conflicts or when they are not available during the day because they've already been scheduled to a section. So sometimes this is okay, especially for our language classes or our specials classes like art classes, that art 3 and 4 might be the same period of the day in the same classroom with the same teacher. They're just modifying the curriculum for the 4th level 4th year students. So that's okay. Again, the conflicts that show on either of these reports do not stop the batch scheduler from running. Okay. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about is number 20. This is your R407. This is your most popular report. This is going to show each of your courses. This is going to show each of the sections that you have, who is teaching it, how many requests have been filled, and then how many students are still in demand for this class. So again, you're picking your default schedule and your default results. You can run this by course term. So if you are a semester only district and you only want to run this for a semester at a time, you can do that. Or if you want to run it for everything, you can just leave everything to the left. So you can pick your grade levels. I'm just going to leave it as is. It's going to organize them by my course codes. And if I look at this, oh, maybe I did not rerun it. Oh, I think I ran it yesterday. We will run this. If you have not ran the batch scheduler, this doesn't tell you as much as later on when you run the I just ran it twice. The demand will, your demand is not going to be accurate if you haven't ran the batch scheduler yet. So if I'm looking at my English 10 class, I can see that one student has requested it, it's been fulfilled, and I still have one student that needs this scheduled. Okay. Same with my algebra, 30 students. So nobody has been assigned to these yet, but 30 students are still in demand for this. So that it's been requested, but it's not been assigned to them. So again, without going through the batch scheduler at least one time, your demand is going to be really high because nothing has been assigned to your students. So you're going to see a lot of zeros next to each of your course sections. Okay, any questions with any of the reports? Like I said, I think that could be a session in itself. There are a lot of them, and as we go on and we run the batch scheduler once, we'll look at some of these and they'll provide more details for us. On page 921 talks about having a second master schedule. Again, you can only have one result set finalized, so it is not suggested to have multiple master schedules or multiple result sets. If there is a case where you are in limbo of a levy or cutting because of funding or something like that, please put in a support ticket and we'll look and talk about the options that you have. But just remember that when you're running any of these reports, until your schedule is finalized, you do finalize your schedule, you can't combine result sets. So you have to make sure you settle on one. So it's best just to have one. So we're skipping over that section because it does not apply to most people. Okay, task number 2. This is probably the area where you are currently at, is hand scheduling students before you run the batch scheduler. So, a few things here. You're probably working on this. We talked about this during part 1. You can bulk request courses for your students. So, you can set for lunches and assign that to all your students. Maybe your 10th grade, they all get, 3 core courses, and then you can hand assign or hand request other ones. If you're using the public module, this is where this would come into play as well, making sure that everything has been approved and it's not in that pending status. So we are going to look at a few students. So I'm going to put a student in context. I'm going to look at Timber. So if I look at his schedule, nothing has been scheduled for this student yet. But if I go back one level to scheduling and go to course request or go to requests, this is going to show everything that has been requested. Okay, so you can see my English 10 history and so forth. Okay, so these are requests. Notice that my requests do not show up on the student's schedule screen. These only show assignments. However, if I go to if I go into my students and go to my student schedule and go to request assignments, this is a different area where you can see the requests and the assignments. Okay. So this shows both. However, some people do not like this screen because it only shows the course code. It does not show the course name. So it is a little bit more difficult to know exactly what course you're dealing with unless you know all those course names. So, and then also notice on this screen, if I want to assign something, I click on the pencil and then I can pick what section that I want to assign the student to. Okay, so please note that if you are manually assigning a course to a student, that you do have to pick a section. So it requires you to pick, in this case, one of these 3 sections. If you let the batch scheduler run, it looks through all of the requests and says, okay, well, you know what? Maybe this course is only offered during meeting time 3, third period. So I'm not going to assign them to 002 during third period because that's going to go to 12. So that's what the batch scheduler does and what it looks at. But if you're manually scheduling, you do have to pick one of those. So I'm going to go back to a different student. Let's look at Bacon here. So I'm looking at his requests. He doesn't have as many requests as Tim. So I'm going to go and I'm going to switch back to a different screen. So I'm going to go back into SIS, go to scheduling and my requests. Okay. So if I look here, I notice that he is not scheduled or requested English 10, and this student needs English 10. So I can come here and I can put in a request. So I can add a request. So I'm going to put in 002. I do not, if I'm adding a request, I do not have to put in a section. Okay, so I'm going to put in 002. If I need to exclude a teacher or a class period, I can put that in here. We will talk about this when running the batch scheduler. There is an option. So for example, if I teach at the school, but I don't want my student in my class, I might say, you know, exclude me as the teacher, and then it'll look for other teachers that are teaching that same course. Some of us don't have that option because only one teacher teaches, say, all of the science courses. So you might not have that option, but just remember that this is here. I'm going to hit save. And you can see now that English 10 is here. Okay. So that is how you can manually add. Now, just remember that because I added the request, that does not show on their schedule. I'm going to switch back to Tim. Okay. So, and I'm looking at his schedule and there's nothing here. And I'm like, oh, he's supposed to be in choir. He has to be in choir this year. He needs that class. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to assign him into a choir class. Notice I'm on the assignment screen, not the request screen. So once I say I need him in choir, okay. Oops, I have to pick again, if you are assigning it, you have to pick the section. So if I want him in section 9, I'm going to hit search. What am I doing wrong? Default schedule. Oh, might help if I hit add. I'm going to hit that choir class. I'm going to do my section 9 and I'm going to hit save. It's all right. There it is. Okay. So notice it shows up in orange. Okay. So that means that it has not been completely saved yet. It is just showing that I've added that assignment. So now I do have to hit save one more time. I was getting save happy and hit save early. So now this is assigned to the student. It is scheduled to that student. But if I go back to his requests, notice that choir is still here. So I want to show you on a different screen. So if I go into, I'm going to go into the student screen. So I'm going to go into the student schedule and the student requests. Now, this is the important thing that you have to know. that if you are manually assigning from that a course assignment screen, it doesn't automatically attach it to the request. And the request is what the batch scheduler is going to look at. So at this point in time, it is looking here and saying, okay, this has been assigned. Course 800, section 9. But if I look at my request, it is still requesting 800. So what the batch scheduler is going to do is say, hey, I don't have section 9 available, but I'm going to look at course 800 and see what other sections are available and assign it into one of those. And if you remember correctly, there was section 1 and I think section 3. So it would be able to be assigned in one of those. So if you don't want that to happen, okay, don't assign it from that assignment screen. That assignment screen should be used after the schedules have been finalized. So I'm going to remove this. And right now it's going to allow me to delete because our schedules are not finalized. Okay, notice it's gone. And I'm going to go back, and I can do it from here. So I can pick the pencil from here, but I'm going to go back to the student's request screen because a lot of people do use this screen. So I'm looking at this. Instead of going to that assignment screen, I'm going to do it from here and say, okay, this student needs to be in choir 9th period. So I'm going to click on the plus from here. It's going to say, okay, it's going into course 900. What section? I'm going to pick my section 9 and hit save. And now when I look here, not only does it show the request, it also shows the assignment that I still need to save. And then once I go back to my student schedule, it's going to be listed here. Or if I'm that person and I like to look at the individual student requests in the student schedule, it's going to line up. So that's the important thing, is we want these things to line up. Okay. So that's manually adding those assignments. If you need to physically assign something, for example, a student might be going for an honors diploma and they have to have that 3rd year or 4th year of a language. So you might want to manually schedule them to that. So make sure you're doing it from the request screen. If you are going from the course assignment screen from here, then you do not need to put in a request because it automatically assigned it to them. Okay. And typically we don't start adding stuff here until the schedules are finalized. Okay. And then you'll notice that I manually added that. So under the type, it shows manual. You can see 3 different options. Manual is because I physically added it to the student. Online is by using the single student scheduler, or you will see batch, which is using the batch scheduler. So you might see those 3 things. Okay. Any questions with manually assigning? And again, I'm guessing this is where most of you are at, working with your students, getting their requests in, making sure that the requests are fulfilled so the batch scheduler can run. Rebecca, I'm not sure what you are asking in the chat.
There was, if you're in the view edit student schedule, if you're doing courses manually there, apparently
Yes,
they don't get assigned and the batch scheduler will see the request as not fulfilled. But is that just the
I
example
just
you showed
showed that.
us? Okay, I didn't know
That's
if
what
it
I,
was different because they referred to it as a defect, but
yeah, no, that's what I just showed, that if I put it here, they don't match up on the same line. So if I manually add it here, but then there's also a course request, it's gonna assign them to that choir class twice.
okay. Sorry to be redundant there.
Nope, that's okay. Okay, I am going to skip over task number 3, that is running the single student scheduler. We will come back to that. We're going to look at running the full batch scheduler, which is task number 4, which is on page 19. And I have notes all over the place, so you probably hear my papers crinkling everywhere. Okay, so I'm just going to go up, and in my go-to, I don't even know if it's a real word, but I'm going to go to my scheduler. So when I look at my scheduler, we're going to look at like the schedule wizard and so forth, but you can see my result sets are here, the schedule history. But what we're going to look at right now is setting up our job perimeter sets. So don't panic when you click on these, because you are probably going to see 24, 25 once you click on that. I've already updated my names here. They automatically copy up from the previous year, including the exact same name. Okay, so again, don't panic if it says default 24, 25. Just double check up here to make sure you're in 25, 26. If you are in the wrong school year and you're ready to run this, you will see once, as soon as the schedules are finalized, the batch scheduler becomes inactive. So I changed to 24, 25. I no longer can run the batch scheduler. So that's how you know. But like I said, SYI automatically copies up the job perimeter set with the exact same name. So we will change the names here in a minute. Typically, you only have 2 job perimeter sets. You'll have one for batch and you'll have one for single student. So for example, this one's called default. If you wanted to call it batch, you could. Instead of saying SSS for single student scheduler, you can say single student. The name is kind of for your reference. But you know here that running this is, it's going for the batch, or it's going for the single student. Scott, I saw your message real quick. You might have a separate one for your 7th and 8th graders because of their scheduling.
I thought in that case, though, that was a ticket from the summer that because they were a 7-12 building, they couldn't be a
Do they
separate.
have the same periods? Okay, it all falls under one. They all have the same periods though, right? Like they all have 9 periods in the day or whatever. Okay, yes. So then, yeah, you should be okay. Okay, so I'm going to go through and edit. And then one thing, there's 3 buttons here, or 4 if you want to count the lock. But the one we are not going to use is this one, because what that does is it creates a whole new result set. So when you're selecting, you select the default schedule and the result set. This creates a whole new one, and we don't want that to happen. Sometimes people see this and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to click on that. And then they look at their result sets and they don't know which one they're using. So we want to stick to one default schedule, one default set, but we can rerun this multiple times. And that's just using these little arrow guys. But we are going to go into our edit. So we're going to edit this record. It would have copied over everything from last year that you had. So you might want to tweak a few of these things. So you can see when I ran the batch scheduler the first time, I only ran it for my 9th grade students. I am now going to just run it for my 11th grade. And if you're running it for everybody, you have all your manual entries created, everything is set. You are ready to batch schedule all your students. You can pull all the grade levels over 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. I'm just doing one grade level at a time because I keep some of those other grade levels for different examples. So that's why I am doing one at a time. But I have to remember that if I am running this one at a time, if I run the batch scheduler again, I would want to run it for 9, 10, and 12 and not include the 11 because I already batch scheduled them. So it is tricky when you're trying to do the grade levels individually, but it is possible. If you like the thought of that idea, because maybe you're working on seniors right now and you want to, have them done in the schedules to them, Appendix A kind of refers to this of scheduling one grade level at a time. So again, that's Appendix A. And then how do I want, what course terms do I want scheduled? 9 times out of 10, you're going to schedule all your course terms, not just the first semester, because you want to make sure that if you're a semester only school, that they're getting English 9A and English 9B. So you want to make sure that those are both getting scheduled. Then our sort criteria, if you're doing multiple grade levels, it will sort by grade level. Descending is seniors first. Ascending is 9th grade first. So if you want the seniors at the top of your list to go through, go with grade level descending. So it'll schedule them based on the priority. And then it will go down to 11th, 9th, or 10th, and then 9th, and so forth. And then random students, it's just going to kind of scramble through all the students instead of going through them alphabetically. One thing that I do want to mention is this one called Student Schedule Priority. This is different than the priority scheduling of a course. So when you are creating a course, hold on one second. When you are creating a course, and my guess is my other screen timed out. It did. Give me 1 second to log back in. When you have a course in context and you're creating that course, you can give it a scheduling priority. This is different. So students also have a scheduling priority. So maybe it's a student that's graduating early. That might be the time where they might have a different priority than somebody else. So let me pull up my English 10. So when I'm looking at my scheduling priority for my course, so I'm in my course English 10 on the general tab. So remember, my higher numbers are going to get scheduled first before my lower numbers. So typically our electives are, 5s and below, because we want our core classes, our English, our maths, our sciences. We want those as the higher numbers, so they get scheduled first. Then actually keep this one open. If I put a student in context and I'm looking at my student on the profile page, I believe it's on the additional tab. Yes, scheduling priority. I think a majority of them, it's either going to be blank or 5. So then everybody gets scheduled evenly. If you have a student that you know for sure is graduating early, or, they need certain classes or something like that, you might put them as a 9 so they get scheduled before anybody else. But typically we don't use that. If you are using that, you could use the student schedule priority. Again, this goes by the student. This does not go by the course. Okay. Then our section overfill percent, typically it is set at 5%. And then what this means is that when the course is at capacity, it will overfill by 5%. So the example on page 14, it says a class of 20. So this is easy math. So a class of 20, 5% of that is 1. So it will allow overfilling by 1 person or 1 student. If you want to be a little bit more technical, if you have a class that you allow 25 students in and you have the overfilling of 5%, that is 1.25. Well, you're not just going to schedule the arm of a student into a class. So you can only schedule up to 1 extra student because it was 1.25 and you can't schedule a quarter of a student. So that's what the overfillment means. The course group locking. So again, I'm going to pull this, my other screen over for my course groups. So some of you are using course groups. Oops, course groups. I don't have a lot of them in the demo, but for example, here I have my biology class 510. So if I look at this right now, I said is locked and it is not checked. That means that with this, I have biology 1 and biology 2. So, and it might be semester 1, semester 2, whatever it might be. The other example I have is for computer applications 1 and 2. You need to take both of them. But maybe a student fails computer applications 1, but they passed 2. So they need to retake 1. If I leave this unchecked, that means they can register for just computer 1 or just biology 1. If I check it, that means that that student will not be able to schedule just 510A. They have to schedule both of them together. Okay. So that's how. Oh, and I never switched back to, because I'm in the other one. But that's what the is locked means. Okay. So what this is, if I say lock no course groups, that means that they're always locked. They're going to stay. So no course groups. Yes, this one is that it does not matter if they're grouped together. This one is honoring what is on that course group screen. So if you are creating course groups, and I know a lot of our semester schools do, because you group A and B together, you would want to honor what is on that course group screen. And then lock all course groups. That means everything is locked. You can never take it singly. Okay, so you can, so I said those 2 backwards. This one, you can take either or. So, you can take section 1 or section 2. It doesn't matter. This one, it's going to honor what is on that course group setup screen. And this one, you have to take them both together. The balance, ethnicity, I don't really know if anybody is using that, but that's just so there's balancing. I don't know if we have enough diversity in our districts that will actually work correctly. And then the time limit per student, you really don't want to go over 60 seconds. It typically does not take 60 seconds per student, but it will look at a student for up to 60 seconds to try to get them scheduled. And within that 60 seconds, it will run hundreds of times to try to come up with a schedule, or look at things hundreds of times and say, okay, where's this going to go? Where's this going to go? And so forth. So I'm going to go to my next tab. So I'm going to click on next. So this is the difference between the batch scheduler and the single student scheduler. When we are running our batch, we typically go through 3 different passes. So you can have more passes if you want. Typically, you don't have less than that when you're doing the batch. So this is how many times it's going to go through all these controls or the rules that you are setting to try to schedule these students. So I'm going to leave mine at 3. The next one is the periods of the day. So I have 9 periods. So I'm going to say 9, leave it at 9 periods. If you require all of your students to have a study hall, and I have 9 periods a day, I would then want to subtract 1 and make it 8. So it would schedule all 8 periods, and 1 would be blank for you to be able to run the study hall wizard to schedule that 1 study hall for that student. Okay, so again, this would be your periods of the day. And if you require a study hall for every student, then you would make it 1 less. And then this might be the only other one that you have completed. And this is the variation between schedule terms. A lot of times you might have 1 or 2 set in here. And this is saying if the student has 7 courses, you don't want them to have 6 courses the first semester and only 1 course the second semester. If you have those 7 courses and you have this set at 2, that means that it can never be more than 2 off. So it could be 4 and 3 and so forth, or 5 and 2. No, that's not, that 5 and 2 doesn't work. So it could be 4 and 3. If there's 8, it's going to be, you could have, the 5 and 2, but yeah, 5 and 3. Sorry, I can't do math. Because it can't be more than 2 courses off. So some people do use that, some people don't. You can leave it blank. Then typically the rest of these are left blank. These are more detailed. Daily pattern rules would have to be set up prior to using the batch scheduler, and then weighting the courses between the terms. Typically a lot of our semester classes, it's an even weight anyways, because they're taking A first semester and B second semester. So it's pretty much evenly weighted. So basically what this is saying is I don't want, 5 CCP classes first semester, and then only like phys ed, art, and all those specials second semester. So typically how we're weighting things because of that manual scheduling, because some of those classes are only offered 1 period of day. Typically we don't use this because it's done already. And then the excessive periods, are you allowing them to go over this number of periods? So typically we don't allow them to go over the 9 periods of day. So I'm going to move on to our pass control, which is our next tab. I could click here or click on next. So looking at this is setting up our 3 passes. So you can see everything here. These are all the rules that it is going to take into play when it is running the batch scheduler. Okay, so a few things that they're only going to run a couple times, and then few things you're going to allow on that last pass. So first is enforcing the course sequencing. So if I'm looking at this, you can see I have the course sequencing rule enabled for the first pass and the second pass. So that is using this tab here. So these might be set up. That is saying, so for example, in this example, it is showing that I have to take computer applications 1 in an earlier term than computer applications 2. So that's basically saying first semester, second semester, but I can't take applications 2 before I take applications 1. Okay, so some of you use this, some of you do not. So if you do, they might be set up here and they would have copied over from last year. The is rigid means that if this is checked, that you want the batch scheduler to honor the course sequencing rule on all passes, even if it is not checked here. Okay. If the is rigid is not checked, then the batch scheduler honors what is in the pass control here. Okay. I know, very, very strange, but that's how it works. So if you are using course sequencing, you might have a lot of those here. For example, you might have Spanish 1 before Spanish 2 and so forth. So those would be listed here. And some of those you have, remember the batch scheduler doesn't look at prerequisites, but some of these you have set as prerequisites. So you know when you're getting those requests in, if they've taken the prerequisite or not. So I'm going to go back to my pass control. Enforcing those daily pattern rules, those were on the pass perimeters. We did not have anything there. The teacher link groups. So this is, and I don't have any set up in here. I guess the computer class was set up from last year. But this is if you want, so if you have multiple computer classes, Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Jones both teach computer applications. If a student takes computer application 1 first semester, I want them to have, with Mrs. Smith, I want them to have computer applications 2 with Mrs. Smith. So that is what this does. Again, a lot of times we don't have enough staff in our districts to have multiple, so it's automatically going to be that same teacher anyways. So that those might not be set up for you because it doesn't apply to your district. Enforce the max number periods of day. Again, that was listed here in our pass level perimeters. So it won't go past 9. Enforce the numbers between the courses between the scheduling terms. I might only accept that once and say, okay, you know what? If you can't get this evenly, you can't get it between the two, then you know what, just schedule whatever you can schedule. So you might just have this set up for 1. And then if you're using the weighting, so they're not having a huge chunk of the CCP at the beginning, and easy classes at the end. A lot of people don't use that one. That one's blank as well. So I'm going to leave that blank. Allow overfilling. You can see I only have this on the last pass. I want to try to stay to the capacity of the class. So if it's 25, I want to try to stay at 25. But if it's not possible, I'll allow that overfilling right at the end. And then when creating the request, if there are alternates set up with the course request, I will look at those for the last pass only. And then this one you will definitely want checked, allow partial schedules. So because there are going to be some conflicts, things like that, you want partial schedules to happen during the last pass, because a full schedule means that every single request has been fulfilled. And we know that a student might have extra requests that can never be fulfilled because 3 classes are offered during 3rd period, and it's not possible to schedule them in all 3 of those. So you do want those partial schedules, and you can have that set to the last pass. And then order requests by priority. Okay, so that goes by the priority of the classes. Okay, set on the scheduling priorities. And then enter the requests with assigned teachers or periods. So remember, I said on those requests, when you're putting in that request, you can exclude a teacher. So if I had a student in the school and I don't want my own student, I can exclude myself. If that is a case for you, you can check what's appropriate for your district. Again, sometimes there's only one teacher that teaches science, so we don't have that option. Okay, we already talked about our course sequencing and we looked at our teacher links. Okay, so I'm going to go on to my last and final tab, which is submit. This is where you are going to rename it. So if yours still said default 2425, this is where you can rename. So you can rename it to 2526, or if you want to rename it to, default batch 2526, you can do that. And then you can put in any description. Okay. So we are going to set this parameter as our default. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't come back in here and make modifications and rerun the job parameter sets. This is just saying, hey, I'm setting this one as my default batch. So when I click on that circle button, it's going to run this. So remember, I'm only running it for 11th grade. So I might run through it several times with the 11th grade, but then I might come in here and modify it and then run it for my 12th graders once I get them their requests in. We are not going to check this for this one. That is task number 3 that we'll come back to in a little bit. And then this one, I do suggest clearing the schedule results created by the scheduler. So what this is doing is saying, okay, you ran the batch scheduler once. Maybe you made some tweaks. Maybe you changed some course sections. You changed what periods. Maybe that French 2 class was only offered during 3rd period. Now I changed it to 6th period so more people can request it. If you make any type of changes like that, you have to rerun the scheduler. So in that case, you want to clear out what the results were before and rerun it. Okay, if you leave that unchecked, it's going to leave all those results that you had. Nothing will be updated, and it's going to create those new results. So typically you want that one checked, and this one you would never want checked. And be careful that you don't check it when you are clicking on save. Okay, because this clears all of your manual entries. If by some chance that did happen, it was checked and you clicked save, don't do anything else. Immediately call and put in a ticket, and Frontline can correct that. But if you keep working and 3 days later, you're like, where are all my manual entries? By that time, they can't go back. They can do it immediately, but they can't go back days. Okay, so just be aware of that. I wish they would move it to the side or something like that because it is in a bad location, but we never check that one because that would clear out all the hard work you have been doing. Okay, and then I'm going to hit save and it's going to save all of my updates. And it is fine for you guys to save it now. We did not run it. We were just editing it and we were saving it. So if you were following along, you don't feel like you have to click cancel. You can still click on save. So you can see it updated, my description, that's there. It will also put the check mark here because you said set as your default batch scheduler perimeter. Okay. So that takes us through task number 4. So I basically outlined everything through there all the way to page 30. So page 30 states, do not forget to enter requests for lunches. So if you have not entered your request for lunches, you need to do that before you run your batch scheduler. So you can bulk set them if you want. So that all of the students have a lunch request assigned to them. Or you could do it individually, however you want to work that, but you need to have your lunches set before you run the batch scheduler the first time. Okay. So, and if I pull up one of my students in context, let's see. Let me get one of my. Okay, so if I look at this student, I'm going to look at their schedule. Nothing has been assigned yet. If I go into their requests, they at least have a lunch. Okay, so again, you want to make sure those lunches are assigned to everybody. So, you know, I'm not running it for 10th grade because I don't have all my requests in. Okay, but I'm just saying that this was bulk assigned to everybody. Okay. So this is where you guys are going to stop because you are probably not ready for this yet. So this is actually running the batch scheduler and then looking at some of the statistics. So again, I have those lunches. So those lunches were fulfilled. You know, at that point, I have all my manual entries put in. And so now I want to make sure that I'm going to run this and we're going to see how it turns out for these students. So again, I'm not going to click on the dark circle. I'm going to click on the circle with the arrows. So this is the one that will run the batch scheduler and update your existing schedule results. We don't want to keep creating new ones. So we are not using this one. We are using the one next to the pencil. Okay, so you can run this multiple times up until the schedule is finalized. Once the schedule is finalized, this will be grayed out and you will no longer be able to run. If you finalize your schedule and you realize there's things that are wrong, you need to change things around, you would have to put in a ticket to us so we can unfinalize, if that's a word, unfinalize your schedule. You can't do it at the district level. We have to do it at the ITC level. Okay. So, so here in my job perimeter set, I am going to, and again, I'm going through task 5. You guys do not want to run yours because you probably don't have all of your requests in yet. So you kind of want to just follow along on the screen versus actually doing. So I'm going to run this. So I'm going to click on execute and update. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to run the batch scheduler in 25-26? And I am going to say yes. So then it's going to ask what schedule you want to use. So I want to use the default schedule. Again, this is why we typically don't have multiple schedules. But if you did have one that the levy failed, that would be listed there as well. And you would have to make sure you pick the correct one. Then your result sets. Again, this is why we only have one result set because I know I'm using the 25-26 default result set. If I clicked on that little play button, that dark circle, it would keep populating more and more. And then you don't know which one is the most current and the best one. Okay, I'm going to give this a name. So what am I naming this? So this is for grade 11. So this is for my 11th grade students. And then the job queue, it doesn't matter. I guess this doesn't work, but it's still here. I don't know. So that's been in multiple trainings that they say this doesn't work. So I'm just choosing scheduling since we're working on scheduling. And then notice the same choices are here as they were when we were saving our perimeter sets. So clear the schedule of results created by the scheduler. So we do want that checked because we want it to rerun for all of our requests. And then we do not, don't check this one to clear the created manually ones. We don't want that checked. And then when you are ready, and again, you guys probably are not, so you are not going to do this. If you're at this step, you would want to cancel. I am going to execute so you guys can see my 11th grade run. So well, let's look here. Hold on. Let's go back to my 11th graders. So let me pull up. So if I'm looking at Polly here, she only has art scheduled. Okay, but if I look at her course requests, she has a full schedule of requests. English 11, Algebra 2, French 3, blah, 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 blah. So those are all listed there as her requests, but she only has that one scheduled. Okay, so we'll look at her here in a second after I execute this. So we're going to execute the job. And then you'll see, this is very similar to our maintenance screen. So, or management screen, how you have to keep refreshing your screen here. So that is the same thing here. You can see that this one was submitted. This one, the status is complete. Or sorry, I had those backwards. But then you can see that now my grade 11 is now completed. And it's going to show when the runtime was. Okay. So then I have some stats to look at. I can rerun if I need to. I can look at my job perimeters. But before we even go to the stats, let's go back and look at Polly here. So again, these were all just approved approved requests. Nothing was assigned. But now if I refresh my screen, it's going to show me everything that was assigned. And notice it says by batch, except for the one that I manually entered. And then notice French was not scheduled. Okay. So we're going to remember polyester because we're going to look at her in some of our stats, but we're going to go back and look at our course section assignments. And you can see now here is the start of the student schedule. So first period, second period, fourth, fifth, sixth, and eighth. Okay, so the student is on its way to being fully scheduled for the 25-26 school year. So back to the screen. We're going to look at some of our stats for our 11th grade run. So you guys are going to have a lot more stats than I am, just because I think there's only 20 some kids in my 11th grade class. You guys have more than that, and you guys have more course selections than what we have. So you can see here, I'm going to expand this a little bit. So you can see here my student schedule summary. So I can see on the first pass, 18 students were fully scheduled. All their requests were granted. All right. So that means there was no conflicts. Everything had a course section and so forth. On the second pass, there was nothing done because most of them were done here. And then on the second one, somebody was fully scheduled with an error, and 8 of them, because remember on the pass controls, I said on the last attempt or that last pass that they could partially schedule them. So now I do have 8 that were partially scheduled. So then you can see here, it kind of breaks down your percentages and so forth. You do want a higher percentage than this. So you're probably never, ever going to get 100% on fully scheduled because like I said, if a student has extra requests in there, it sees those as not being fulfilled. So it's not a full schedule. So in that case, you would have to go in and manually delete those and then rerun it, and it would say that that student has a full schedule. Okay, so this is just giving you some details of your students. This is showing who has been fully scheduled. Okay, so you can see all of these students were fully scheduled. Okay, so if I look at Aiden Bush, 824, so let's pull them up on my other screen. I don't know why I copied that. I can remember 3 numbers. But I can look at his screen and he's been fully scheduled. So that means if I go back to his request screen, everything has been fulfilled. There's nothing empty. Now, remember for Esther, polyester, she still had one that wasn't fulfilled. So she should be on our partial schedule. So if I look here, fully scheduled, but there was an error. Okay. So we'll see what that error is here in a little bit. So then if I look down here, we have further partially scheduled. So we can see that these have been scheduled. So then if I look at teriyaki, everything's been scheduled except for chemistry. Okay, so again, that's why they call it partially scheduled. So you can see here, this is going to show us some details. So here is the problem. So course 207, it has a request, but there's no course section. So if we look back at polyester, I'm looking at the wrong person. So if we're looking at polyester, so that's my course 207. So there are no sections for that. So I would have to add a course section in order to schedule that. And then I would have to rerun the scheduler. And then it would fully schedule her if there's not conflicts with the period. Okay. So just looking through here, I can see, same thing. The group has requests, but there's no course groups. So this is going to tell you, a few different things here. Okay. And then I can move on to my request messages. If you had any duplicates on your R401, remember all those codes were on, what page was that? Was that 9? I don't remember. No, was it 9? It was 6. If you had one that was a duplicate, that would populate here. So you would see different things like that listed here. Request exceeding course capacity. So for section 400, there's 27 that have requested it, but the capacity is only 18. So only 18 students got this. Plus that meets the overfill. Remember our overfill was 5%. So it's higher than our overfill. And then our course 207 has 2 requests, but the capacity is 0 because there is not a course section for that. So then I would have to go in to create those course sections for my French 3. So then those can get scheduled. And then this just shows you some stats. And most of these we had marked as 0. So there's not going to be any results here. So the one thing that we need to do is look at we noticed we didn't have course sections. So we need to create a course section for course 207. So I'm going to go into my course sections. my default schedule, my default result sets. So 207. Okay, and you can see that there are no courses or course sections here. So the course is created, I just never created any. And it might be a chance that it was inactive last year. Maybe you didn't have French last year and you're offering it again this year. So it might be inactive. Remember, if it is inactive and you try to create a new course section with the same course section number, it will give you an error. It won't allow you to create it. So always double check make sure that there's not an inactive one, so you're not duplicating, because it will not allow that. So I'm going to add a new course. Some people do the section number with what period it is and so forth, or it could be based on how many courses you offer. It just depends. So if this is the case, this might be section 7 because it's going to be offered during 7th period. If it's a semester class or an all-year class, I think it's a semester. And then it's active. Do you want it to roll over to the next year? My meeting times, who the teacher is, to Mr. Boring in 125, and it's going to be 7th period. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And then now here is that class. So if I rerun the scheduler, then that is going to disappear as long as she has 7th period open. Okay, and I don't remember what period she had open. I think that was it. I was trying to remember. But once I rerun it, then it will fulfill that for her and schedule it as needed. Okay. Okay. Then of course, we're back to all of those reports again. If we're doing reporting. So our scheduling reports, we're not going to go through all of these, but just some that to be aware of. So this kind of helps you once you've ran the batch scheduler once. You can look at some of these, such as students with alt courses. This is determined if you use the alt course when you are creating your course assignments or course requests. I'm sorry. So if you're manually putting in course requests, remember there is the option to add an alt course. So in this case, she's taking French, but maybe I want her to be able to take Spanish as an alt. So maybe it's going to be 202 if she can't take the other one. So just be aware that if you don't use this, then this report is not helpful at all. Students with free time, this is a good one because you want to look to see how much free time they have. Students with free time. So I'm just going to do my 11th grader since that's who I just scheduled. You could pick by ad hoc group. You can sort, but since I only have one grade level, I don't need to sort by any way. So, if you required everybody to have one study hall, you want to make sure that you put something in here. So this is how many minimum free periods in the schedule for the student to appear on this report. So if you require every student to have a study hall, we haven't scheduled study halls yet. So every student would show on this report. So you might say a minimum of 2 because you want to see if they have more than one study hall. And I'm going to leave that blank because my scheduling is different than yours. Go to my management screen. So you can see, I can go through here and I can see, okay, here's polyester. She has 3rd open, 7th open, and 9th open. So luckily that French class, was it French or Spanish, whatever it was, I just scheduled that. I just created a section for 7th period. So now when I rerun the batch scheduler, it's going to pick that up for her. So she would only have 3rd and 9th available. So this one's kind of nice to see. And typically most of our classes are 5 days a week. So you're going to see those or Monday through Friday, and then what reporting terms. So if it's a semester class, you're going to see the first 2. And then if it's a all year class, you'd see all of them. And then second semester, you'd see the last 2. Okay. So a few others, the 424. This is when they got scheduled into one class, but not another. So if, for example, that biology 1 and biology 2, this is if a student got scheduled into one of them, but maybe there was a conflict second semester and they couldn't get them into biology 2. So that would populate that. The R425, the students scheduled into 2 assigned course sections. So you might want to run that to see if they're scheduled into those sections. It will populate a list of those students, and then what section, it would list the section that they're scheduled into. The R426 is probably your most popular one. And this is analyzing the student schedules. I believe I ran this one, but I might not have. Okay, let's go back. So what this is going to show is the student request and if they were assigned or if it could not be met. So the R426, I'm going to pick. Again, I'm just doing it for my 11th graders because that's all I ran the scheduling for. So you can see here are some of my students. So if I look at polyester, it's showing me that she has not, it's been requested, but it's not been assigned. So this one is kind of helpful. It's kind of like the stat screen after you run the batch scheduler, but this is the printed copy. So I can look through each student and say, okay, they're assigned. Yep, they were fully scheduled, partially scheduled. Okay, now we need to look at this course and so forth. So then you can go through. So it's saying, the course is here, but there's no course sections. And then this one is saying chemistry, all the sections were full. So this one is very helpful, again, going through this, and it is kind of helpful to go through it by grade level so you can see what still needs to be done, what still needs to be corrected. And then the R807, this is just a summary report to say what class it is, where it's located, and how many people have been scheduled to it. So again, it could be helpful, but it's just showing you a summary. It's not showing the individuals like it does for the R426. Okay, now I showed you this one earlier. And then now that since we've ran the batch scheduler for our 11th grade students, oops. If we look at this one, this is the R407, this is the master schedule. So I can't click the right one. Okay. So if I look at this, so I'm going to print it for my 11th grade students. I'm going to hit submit. And now this is going to run and it's going to provide more details because I've ran the batch scheduler. So instead of seeing all those zeros for next to all the course sections, because nothing was scheduled, now I'm going to start seeing some data. So if I look, so algebra 2, so now I can see, okay, section 4 has a total of 7 kids, 18 open spots. Section 6 has 6 total, 19 open spots, but I still have 3 students in demand, which means I still have 3 students that this needs to be scheduled. So typically there's a scheduling conflict or something. So I can look at this course, so 30, I can look at this course on that request screen and see who has requested it. So if I come back, scheduling, I want to do 030. So this is all of the requests that I had for these students. Well, you can see here, I'm guessing my 3 requests that were not fulfilled were my 10th grade students. Okay. Again, these are the requests. This is not the fulfillment, but it's just a quick snapshot to see who requested it. So then I can kind of start breaking it down if I want to. Okay. And then if I look here, I can click on Chris, click on his name. It's going to take me to his request screen where I can see algebra 2. If I want to assign it manually, I can assign it manually, but I have not gone through the batch scheduler for 10th grade, so I would leave it alone. Okay. Okay, actually my Zoom was in the back. Any questions in the Zoom? I don't see any. So task number 7 is just kind of updating, making sure you have things cleaned up before you rerun your batch scheduler again. So if I do go back to my I'm going to go back to my scheduler. So if I look at my scheduler, so these are the runs that I had. So you can see I ran the 9th grade the other day and I ran the 11th grade today. I can get back to my stats. So that's going into my job history. If I want to look at my job perimeters, I can look at my job perimeters to see exactly what I ran. So if I go to my submit, if I want to resave this, I could resave it. You really don't want to resave a new one. You would want to reset it as the default and it would save over the other one. But if that is the case, if everything was off as you're going through that, you'd probably just want to come through here and edit because it keeps the name and all of that stuff in there instead of going through it and trying to save another one. Okay. So you want to kind of look at all those stats, make sure everything is cleaned up before you reran. And now, I deleted it earlier. I guess I should have left it. But I did have my student earlier. Who was I looking at? I was looking at Timber. Let's go back to his schedule. Okay, so I manually assigned choir to him. And then remember earlier I had, I manually assigned it, but he also has a request for choir. If this is not added on the request screen, it's going to look at both of them. Okay, and then it's going to try to reschedule that choir class again. So I might see the manually added one as 9th, and then on the request, I might see another one that doesn't have an assignment. But if you are looking at something and say, for example, let's get okay, so he's got 2 classes, chemistry and French, that were not approved, or I'm sorry, that were not assigned. So if I'm like, oh, you know what, I can't squeeze in that chemistry class, there's no way. Or maybe we decided not to have French because it's only him and Polly. So before I run the batch scheduler again, I would want to remove any requests that are not going to be used. Okay. Now, with that being said, okay, if something has been assigned and you don't want it any longer, okay, so say for example, I want the student to be able to take chemistry so they cannot take band. Okay, we got to drop them out of band. Don't just click here and say, okay, remove band. You got to go backwards. Remove the assignment first. And this is on page 45. Remove the assignment first and then remove the request. Then the next time the batch scheduler runs, it will not look for band. Okay. If I just delete the request for band, it will keep band on his schedule without a request. Okay. So you have to work backwards if it's already been assigned. If it has not been assigned, okay, so say for example, we're not doing chemistry, but we know now that French is 7th period, I can come in here and I can delete this record. Are you sure you want to delete this request? I can say okay. And then you can see chemistry has now been removed. Okay. So once those things are cleaned up, okay, you can also, sorry, and I'm showing both, whichever one you prefer using. If I want to go to the student screen and then the student schedule, I can also remove them from here. So I can remove the request, or I can edit I can delete the assignment and then remove the request. Okay, so again, working backwards. So I want to rerun because I want this 207 to be scheduled for Polly and for Marty. So I'm going to go back to my batch scheduler. And then if I'm not going to change anything, I can just click on the execute, this one. If I need to change something, I can go back through the edit and I can change. So like if I needed to run it for another grade level or something like that, but I don't have anything to change. I'm just going to rerun it. Are you sure? Pick my master. You're going to do this every time you rerun it. So it's going to clear out those old results because we want it to clear out, because if they need to rearrange some of those classes for those kids to be able to get section or course 207, we want to clear it out so then it can be rescheduled. So, and again, never, not sure if I've mentioned that before, but never check that or it's going to wipe out all your manually entered information. So I'm going to execute. It's been submitted. I can refresh. It's been completed. So now I have it. So now if I look at my stats, now I have 19 that have been fully scheduled and some that are partially, 8 are partially scheduled. So when I look at my student details now, here is polyester, because remember that she had 7th period open. So when I look at her full schedule, it has now scheduled her for French 7th period. So then if I look back at her requests, all of her requests have been fulfilled. That's why she was fully scheduled. But if I look at Mardi Gras, I picked that one just because the time of year. Looking at his requests, oh, he has everything fully scheduled. Oh, he is on there. Okay. Yep. It also scheduled him for French. That's right. I removed chemistry already. Sorry. That was my error. If I left chemistry on there, sorry, he would have been still listed under the partially scheduled. Because it does not fit into a schedule. Actually, the chemistry was one that did not have a course section. So it would put him under the partially scheduled. I forgot I removed it to show you how to remove that. So that is why he is fully scheduled. Okay. So then again, just like I did for Mardi Gras, if something cannot be scheduled, you can remove those requests then. So for example, if they picked 4 electives and they can only squeeze in 2, then you can delete those other 2 requests so that it doesn't keep populating them on the partially scheduled list. Okay. Okay. Any questions? And let me reopen my. Okay. Now I'm going on to task 13. So basically, I kind of talked about everything in, oh, that was like 3 different tasks. That was rerunning. And then cleaning up on the request screen, cleaning up on the student request screen, in the multiple areas and so forth. So now we're on task 13. So running the study hall wizard, okay? Again, you are not going to do this at this point in time. Please do not run this. Do not think that is one of the FYIs. Highlight it. It's the 3rd, 4th one down. Do not run this because there is no way to clean it up without going to each one and cleaning it up manually. Okay. Once you're ready to run the study hall wizard, you can run it multiple times to get those students in there. Okay. So just looking at these, it gives you the big stop at the top. You do not want to run this. You want to be sure that you have the batch scheduler that no longer needs to be ran. Okay. So you're not running it any longer. Everything looks good. And you're ready to give those blank spaces, study halls to those students. Typically, this is done right before you finalize your schedule. So everything has been completed. The batch scheduler ran, all the manual entries are in there. Everything's been cleaned up. You're ready to finalize the schedule. So the last thing that you're going to do is run the study hall wizard. Okay. So you can see at the top, you want to be sure that the batch scheduler does not need to be ran again. You are satisfied with the results from the batch scheduler. You resolved the majority of the students' conflicts. And you want to fill in the rest of the blank spaces or open periods with study halls. Okay. Study halls must be a course type of Z. If it is a course type of C, it will not schedule them. So just be aware if you have any of those oddball study hall / intervention / whatever it might be. If it is a study hall period, make sure it is Z. So then the study hall wizard will pick it up. Okay. So, and again, just like the batch scheduler, once the schedule is finalized, you cannot run the study hall wizard again. Okay. So we are going to go back to that scheduler. Oops, that's spell it right. Nope, there it is. Okay. So take my student out of context here. So I'm going to look at my study hall wizard. Okay. So pretty simple of how you're going to run this. Okay. So it's not as many steps as your batch scheduler, but you do want to make sure that you are answering it correctly. Okay. You can use one of those reports, the R415, if you want to see open times for the students. That's going to show any of those open periods So again, that's where one of those reports comes into play. So when I go through this, how many consecutive study halls can I have? So typically we don't let them have more than 2 study halls in a row. If you do allow more than that, you can increase that or decrease depending. Section overfill, that is your 5%. So again, if it's a class that seats 25 kids, the 5% will allow you to have up to 26. It's not going to allow you to have any more. How do you want them to sort? So again, sort grade level descending starts with your seniors. So they're going to get priority over the freshmen. So it'll start with them and then go down from there. I am only going to do my freshmen because those are the ones that are done. And then you have some criteria here. Do you allow first period study hall or don't you? Same with last period study hall. Do you allow? Sometimes we allow these because this is when our seniors, if they have study hall, then they can come in late or leave early. So sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes we don't want study halls before or after lunch. Okay. And then I am going to go to my next step, which is executing the job. So I'm going to choose what schedule it's going to run for, what default set it is, what the study hall name is, or the schedule job name is, sorry, I saw study hall. And then the job queue, again, this doesn't matter. I just keep picking scheduling because that's what I'm doing. Okay, so once you have your study hall perimeter set, you have everything named, then I can click on submit. Just remember, you do not want to do this until you have completed your batch scheduler and you are satisfied with your schedule. If not, you are going to have to do a lot of deleting because there's no way to mass delete the study hall wizard. Okay. So now I'm going to hit submit. Okay, the job was scheduled to run. Great. I'm going to go back to my scheduler, go back to my job history. Oh, look, it doesn't show. Where's my study hall? I just ran it. Well, if I look up here, it's not a regular batch job. It is the study hall job. So I have to click here and change it to my study hall. So now if I go to my study hall and refresh my display, it's going to show what I just did. Okay. So now if I go look at one of my students, one of my freshmen, my mind just went blank. So if I look at his full schedule, now he has all his stuff scheduled. He has 2 different study halls in a row here, but he also had a blank period here because I would not allow him to have more than 2 at a time. Okay. So again, it's going to fill in any blank spaces with study halls if you have those blank spaces. That's why it is so important to make sure you've ran your batch, you've done your manual entry, all of that, you're satisfied with your schedule. And the last thing that you're going to do before you finalize your schedule is fill in with those study halls. If you don't like that it automatically schedules into those blank spaces, you are more than welcome to manually add those. You can manually assign those if you want to, but this way it automatically assigns them for you. And then now if you ran that 415 report, and I'm going to do that for my 9th grade, it should be blank because I just ran that for everybody. Fourth period. Why do we have fourth period open? Oh, because they couldn't have more than 2 study halls in a row. So if I go back to Tweedle D and go to his schedule. So I can't have 4, 5, and 6 as study halls. So that's why there's still an open period. So again, a way to troubleshoot. Okay. Okay, we're going back to task number 3. So this is running the single student scheduler. So this should go quicker because we already ran through it with the batch and it only has one pass through because it's on a single student. So we're going to go back to our job parameters. And yours is probably still named 2425, which is fine. We are going to rename it and we're going to set it as our default single. So we're going to click on the little pencil. In this case, and I'm going to go back there for a second. Oops. These really don't matter. These will gray out once the schedule is finalized. However, you don't execute from here. You typically execute from the student's request screen. That's where you run the single scheduler. So it will, again, it will gray out, but it doesn't matter. But it's important for these that you're running this one. And then once the schedule is finalized, this will be grayed out. And you have to do those manual changes on this course assignment screen. Okay, so our job wizard. Okay, so running through this, again, I'm going to do this. Sorry, doing this for my 10th graders. So again, you would probably do it for 9th, 10th, and 11th all at the same time. I'm just doing it because I kind of have them set so you can see the different examples. Okay. So going through here, pick your course terms, same concept as it was before. If you have multiple grade levels, have it descending and then student random. You still have your 5% overfill for each section. So in this case, are you honoring the course group? That's what's on the course group screen, or, are you locking it and so forth? I'm still going to leave it as honor. And really there's no balancing. So we're just going to leave that alone and keep it at 60 seconds. I'm going to switch to next. So now in this one, did I do that one right? Sorry. Oh, I guess that doesn't matter. Somebody tell me that I had it wrong. I had the batch on there. So I'm going to move on and then you'll see my max number of passes. That's how you know if it's the batch versus the single student, because the single student, you're going to have one pass through because you're doing it for one student. So it doesn't need to run through multiple times and try multiple things because it's the one student. So it's going to run through and it's going to see how many combinations it can do in 60 seconds and come up with the best one. Same thing, periods of the day. How many periods are in your day? You don't want it to exceed that. Do you want that balance between course terms and so forth? And typically, this one you might have something, these are typically blank. Then notice my pass control is a little bit different because I only have the first pass, and there's only one pass. So a lot of those things that we had on the third pass for the batch, we are now going to have on the first pass and the only pass. So we do want to go through the course sequencing rules. We do want the overfilling to happen. We do want the partial schedules to happen. We do want the priority to happen. And then, of course, if you've excluded anybody, any student from a specific teacher, anything like that, you would check that one as well. Okay, so these were things that happened on the third pass for the batch, but now we want it to happen right away during this pass. So if you had course sequencing, just like my computer applications class, I want section or comp 1 taken before comp 2. So that is set up. And then teachers, again, if you want the same teacher for first semester and second semester, or first computer applications 1 and computer applications 2. And then your submit, this is where you're going to rename it. Okay, so if you're still said 24, 25, you rename it here. If you don't like the SSS, you can put in single. Okay, you can give it a description. Now notice I have this set as my default. And notice it automatically then checks allow partial schedules for the student, single student scheduler. Why it's here and why it's here, I don't know. I don't know if one overrides the other or not, but this one, as soon as you check single student, it automatically defaults. So these two should be checked. Again, you want it to clear the results set if it had something, because if you're rerunning this manually for some reason, you want it to be a clean slate. Typically, this is used when students move in after the first day of school, and you'll run this so you don't have to try to sit there and figure out, okay, should they be in this math class and this English class? You run the single scheduler for the student and it finds the best match for the student. And then again, never clear out the manually created. Maybe the student has to be in Spanish 3 as well as band. So I manually assign those already. We don't want those cleared out. So never check that. Never, ever. Again, not sure I mentioned that before, but mentioning it now. Never click that. So now I'm ready to save this. It's not running it, it's just saving it. So it's saved, it updated the name, it updated the description. So now I'm going to go into a student. Okay, and I'm going to look at his full schedule. Did I not run that for just... Oh, I messed that up. I am so sorry. Give me 1 second. I thought I just ran that for my 9th graders. This is why you don't want to run the study hall wizard when it's not time. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So now I only have that one course manually assigned. So he's in choir 9th period. If I go to his request screen, so all of his requests are here. They've been approved. Nothing's been assigned. That's why it looked when I ran through the study hall wizard. That's why it went through here. Because nothing was assigned. So it sees these as blank periods. Okay. So I just want to run this for this one student because I want to make sure that he can get all his course requests in because he has to have this choir class 9th period. So with that being said, I'm going to click on the run scheduler here. So I'm going to click on that. Single student scheduler has ran successfully. Now you can see that it ran and its scheduled items. They are still in red, which means that they have not been saved yet. So I'm going to click on the blue. This one's blue. That should be, I would think they should match the colors, but they don't. So, so it's not saved. So I'm going to click on save changes. And then he is now scheduled in all those. So if I go to his full schedule, I can now see everything's been scheduled manually. If it was batch assigned, it would say batch, but since I ran the single scheduler, it now says online. So I don't have first period, fourth period. So now I'm going to say, okay, well, let's see if I could squeeze in any study halls for this student. So now that everything's been scheduled as needed, I can schedule his study halls. And it's showing he's got one first period and he's got one fourth period. And if I like those changes, I can hit save. And now his schedule is finalized. Okay. So with that being said, we are going to skip back to task number 14. I didn't forget it. This is printing the schedule cards. So the R701. So different than the R700 and the R702, where the report cards and the transcripts can be customizable. This cannot be. However, there are different formats that you can choose from. The most popular before school starts is format 6. And then once school starts, format 1 or 3. So I also want to show you here. I know it's in here somewhere. Am I missing it? I know it's in here. I'm probably just overlooking it. I might have to go to the full one. Schedule cards. Schedule reports. Oh, right there. Told you I was overlooking it. So if you come here, you can just type in search and go to your R701. It should pull this up. The scheduling guide, which is 200 and some pages, it also has it printed in there, but this is just an on-screen view of it. So if you're looking at this, we're going to talk about some of the setup, but it has the breakdown, what you see here in the procedural checklist, you know, the orientation, the request status, if it prints the fees or not. And it shows you all the different formats. If you scroll down a little bit further, it will show you each of the formats individually so you can see what they look like without having to print one. So, you know, it's schedule format 1, 2, 3, and so forth. So again, schedule 1 and 3 are popular. Schedule 1 shows the status of the assignment. So if it's been requested or assigned, where schedule 3 is showing the credits, assuming that it's already been scheduled and what the meeting time is. And then schedule 6 is the other popular one before school starts because it shows the estimated school fees based on course fees, general fees, based on their grade level and so forth. Okay. So that's where you can see kind of the templates. So let's run this. Okay. So the first time through, I am going to do my format 6. So it has the fees and stuff on there for you. I'm going to do a default schedule. Okay. Course terms, you can pick your class types, grade level. So I'm just going to do my 9th grade because I know they're scheduled and they have their study halls. You can do by ad hoc memberships if you want. And then if residents, non-residents, you can pick both of those. And then if you wanted certain students, and I'll show you that here in a second, because I have a student in context, you can put certain students, and then always make sure that your comment information is up to date, because that copies over. So if you want the schedules printed for a student that has no assignments, what do you want them to say? If you want, maybe they're all in pending, you might say, go back to the public module, make sure you submit your course requests. But typically how you print these out is this way, is step number 5. So that is the typical way that you print out, is going to be, so you're going to suppress the request that have no matching assignments is going to be yes. You're going to suppress the results that have no assignments to yes. Print only schedules with results that have no assignments, no. You don't want to just print those, but you can if you want to see students that don't have any requests. And then this last one, students with unpaid fees, don't worry about that, because if it's the beginning of the year, most of the kids are going to have fees maybe from last year. Fees have not been applied yet for the 25-26 school year. So typically we just leave that one as no. Okay. Show meeting times by description or periods of the day. Typically we do the periods of the day and the location so that they know where they're going versus the meeting time description. Remember, the meeting time description is on that general. It does, if you're using basic, it does automatically take the room and the meeting time. However, if you have something different, that can be customizable. So that's why it's better to choose the periods of the day. Okay, then you can do certain things here. If you want to omit the teachers' names, maybe you want the students to see their schedules, but you don't want them to see the teachers yet because you don't want them talking to the teachers or whatever. You can omit the teacher's name, the homeroom information, things like that. So that's up to you what you want to take off or not be visible. And then how you want it sorted. And I'm just doing it for one grade level, so there's really not much to sort because I only have 3 kids. And then I'm going to say submit. So now when I look at my schedule cards, I'll take a second. It's going to have the schedule cards for my students. So it's going to show everything. Notice it does not show a teacher, but it shows their period, the days of the week, and the location. If there's a course fee, it's going to estimate that. And then if there are general fees for that grade level, things like that, it will populate those as well. So that will all be listed, and you'll see it listed for all of my students here. And then there is my comment area or my text that I could customize. Step number 6 will show conflicts if you say no to suppress results that have no matching assignments. So some people do run it that way, but like I said, step number 5 is the most popular. And then step number 8 will show conflicts only. This is basically going to show the students that don't have assignments. So it's going to show that they have requests, but no assignments. So why don't they have these assignments? So if it is, don't suppress the, the assignments, no, and then yes, to print the schedules for no assignments. It's going to show those results with students that don't have any. Okay. So now last thing I'm going to show you with the schedule cards. So 1 and 3, again, I said are other popular ones. 1 shows that if it's been assigned versus requested. So I'm going to use schedule or the format 3. I'm going to use the default schedule. It doesn't need to have a grade in context. Okay. And then make sure it says has everything that you want on here if you want it. I don't know if it puts the comment text on there or not, but how you want it to run. But now in this time, I want the teacher to be visible. I want to be able, the students to be able to see the teacher, or I want to be able to see the teacher. Because now what we're going to do, instead of submitting this, now that I have it set up with the teacher's name and so forth, instead of hitting submit here, I am now going to go to load settings. And I am going to call this 25, 26 default schedule. Okay. I'm going to uncheck private. And I can clean these up. You can see some of these are older ones from Sherry that I would want to clean up because I don't want those listed. And you'll see where it's listed. So I'm going to uncheck private. I'm going to say I want it to be available in the I want to menu. And then I'm going to hit save. So when I do that, it actually doesn't run it. It just saved it. But now if I put a student in context, so I have Timber here. I have him in context. If I go, I want to, I can say view print student schedule, and notice all of Sherry's old ones are on here. That's why you want to clean those up. Okay, so I know that the new one that I created was the 25, 26, and as long as it's not private, other people can use these. And once I click on that, it is going to create the schedule on the fly for the student. So now I have it and I can print it out if I want to. Okay, so again, I can do that live right as we go, and it does put the comment text on there. Okay, so again, those, once I say I want to, it populates it in that I want to menu and creates it live. So second semester, if the student's schedule has changed, they're like, can I have a printed copy of my new schedule? You can just come here and click on that and it's going to create it. Okay. And that is it, except for the appendices at the end. We already talked about Appendix A, that is running one grade level at a time. B, Appendix B, you are not going to use because that is using that dark circle button with the play symbol. We don't really want to create new result sets each time. We want to refresh our result sets so it keeps rescheduling the students over and over again. So you don't use that one. Appendix C is running grade level with a new result set. And then Appendix D would only be if you needed those multiple schedules, if for some reason the levy didn't pass or you have to cut electives, something like that. So you are creating multiple schedules. So again, if that is the case, if you have a certain scenario, please put a help ticket in, run it past me, and then we'll work on it directly for your district. Are there any questions?